to resurrect the theme about home waters that I also loved earlier, I guess mine is bounded by the lochs of Loch Nevis and Loch Hourn, which, if I translate them for you, are the lochs of heaven and the lochs of hell, which are on either side of the Knoydart Peninsula in the West Highlands, where I'm from. So that's my piece of water, although I do have a soft spot for Milford Sound as well, of course. So, Freeport East, one of 12 UK freeports, proud to be a founder member of the hub. On this aerial shot, you can see Felixstowe to the left. Sadly, Paul from Hutchison Ports had to leave us at lunchtime, or he'd be glowing with pride. And then to the right-hand side is the edge of the Port of Harwich and Bathside Bay, which you'll hear me talking about. And in the foreground is the tip of the Shotley Peninsula. So we're a 25-year project. We are government funded, but we're not a government body, so I can, to a degree, talk about policy as well as programs. Our headline figure for the next 10 years is 13,500 new jobs, 5.5 billion uplift in GVA. And although we do assist all the sectors in our area, we do have a very strong focus around green energy, offshore wind and hydrogen production, and zero-emission fuels. So, oh goodness, we'll flip on from that. That's just basically a bit of a health warning to say that I'm not a scientist. I'm an economic development and commercialization specialist. So luckily some of our more technical and scientific partners are here in the room, so I'll be able to divert any awkward questions to them. So in terms of the team at Freeport East, we started off with quite a number of part-time people seconded in, whom we've now made more permanent. So on the screen there, I've got our chairman who works 1 day a week, our chief exec who's full-time, a clean energy specialist 3 days a week, a strategy policy manager, an executive assistant, and a program manager who's 4 days a week. And then recently we've augmented that by creatively seconding in a number investment associate from Essex County Council, 2.5 days a week. And this month we finally got, 18 months in, a comms and marketing manager 3 days a week. So the team is now up to 9 in number, but about 5.6 I think it works out at full-time equivalent. So, as I mentioned, we're part of a national network. They're distributed around the country, as you can see. 2 of them in Scotland, 2 of them in Wales are just coming on stream now. There are 8 in England. We were one of the first 3. I joined them in January last year, a fortnight after we were authorised. And you can see our large range of very specific benefits in relation to the tax model. Now, these relate to specific designated tax sites. What we don't know is what any incoming administration will opt to do in terms of how the Freeport model operates alongside other types of special economic zone, for example, the newer investment zones and the pre-existing innovation zones and enterprise zones. So who knows, there may be some degree of harmonisation or policy shifts. But we do understand that in broad terms, that if there is to be a change in administration, they wouldn't be anything too radical because they recognise the need for a stable environment for a period so that people get used to the existing structures. So let's hope that proves to be the case. In terms of our toolkit, each Freeport was given 25 million of capital funding, which didn't come to us to spend. It was predetermined as part of the business case for each Freeport, and they're to do things like help tackling grid deficiencies of the barriers to growth that we heard about earlier. Our business model is that we operate with the retained rates on the investments we attract into the area. There is also a customs model that is essentially putting us back to pre-Brexit. So if you import goods, you can benefit from duty inversion. You can take in raw materials without charge, manufacture something, and then re-export it without it touching the UK system. Or you can introduce it to the UK marketplace and pay the tariff for finished goods, which is usually much more favourable than that for raw materials. So the tax sites are designated, but the custom sites aren't. So as long as you meet the HMRC requirements, you can set up a custom site anywhere in our radius, which I'll be coming on to. And then we do operate a sandbox capability capacity, so if companies are finding barriers to growth through regulatory barriers, we can intercede with government on their behalf. We've instigated a number of collaboration and partnerships. I'm delighted to say that several of them originated from the original meeting of this group last year, and some of the partners directly arose from introductions made from that meeting, and we'll talk about those in a moment. We focus on the region, not just the port, so we neither own the port nor any of the other physical assets within our area. We're essentially an economic development programme that helps to market the area, both at home and overseas. And we also encourage other private sector developers to develop business parks or other suitable sources of employment elsewhere in our area outside the tax sites. So we're structured as a public-private partnership with 2 counties, 3 districts, the University of Essex. Hutchison Ports are represented twice because they own either side of the estuary. And then Gateway 14 is the special purpose vehicle for one of our tax sites that's ultimately owned by Mid-Suffolk Council. And then we have a trust port, similar to Port of Tyne. So Harwich Haven Authority is one of our ports. This is our area, 45 kilometres around Ipswich, lots of areas of deprivation, so we were initially funded by DLUC, but there is a cross-departmental delivery plan to help us with the ways in which we assist DESNES, Department of Business and Trade, and Department of Transport, Department of Education, in all their target activities related to innovation. So this is the site in Port of Felixstowe, an artist's impression, right next to the cranes of the container terminal, through which 40% of UK traffic comes, and also next to their Ro-Ro terminal. We also have Bathside Bay on the other side of the estuary, which has just been consented for an offshore wind base for 15 years additional use. So we're working with government at the moment to come up with various funding options that would be suitable for conversion of open water into a 1.4 kilometre quay on a 16-metre dredge channel. So it's a very deep facility and intended to be used for offshore wind. And as you can see, this is an announcement about the consent that was granted recently. And then we have an inland tax site at Gateway 14 with the Range Logistics Hub on it and various other factories, including Smart construction company from Turkey for 45 million that has just announced their investment into the area. From Asan Panel, part of Kibar Holdings in Istanbul. We've also been involved in commissioning 3 reports assisted by the Freeports Hub, which is essentially PA Consulting and WSB. So SP, so we've produced a hydrogen offtake assessment because Iberdrola will be producing large amounts of surplus green hydrogen from their facility in Felixstowe from 2027 onwards, all being well. We produced on the first day of London International Shipping Week last year an announcement on the Green Hydrogen Hub, and then in May this year we announced a new report on a Green Transport Hub with the REA. We work collaboratively through the other Freeports, through the Freeports Innovation Network, which is hosted, as one of my colleagues here can tell you, by the Connected Places Catapult, and this is their strategic director who looks after Freeports and other types of investment zones up at UK Reef, where we also spoke about innovation in the Freeport. And this was an example, again, of where we worked with the Connected Places Catapult to do an outreach event demystifying the freight and logistics sector for school pupils. And we ran a hackathon with entrepreneurs, mentoring them. They then did a pitching competition, and I have to tell you, they were superb. This is actually the winning syndicate you can see here. And that was also attended by a number of the freight innovation cluster companies. We've also worked with ORE Catapult to develop a launch academy in the east of England, including an eco-friendly dredging company, Haven Dredging. And Rux Energy are our first FDI, foreign direct investment into the area. So they're a nanomaterials company working on MOFs. And as a result of their growing presence in our area, we've developed into a number of collaborations. So the first one up we'll talk about is the SPOL project, which secured $3 million from CMDC fourth round to develop green technologies for ports and ships, all around green, clean cold ironing. So you can see here the list of companies involved that are up there. So the lead partner was Carno, who are in the room. We've also got connections into Brunel and Cranfield, to Carisbrook Shipping down in the Isle of Wight, the MTC up in Sheffield, Clean Air Power, and a range of other partners. So Jeremy Hurd-Knight's here, and you can hear a bit more about what they're planning. And then a second project that's just been announced in the last week or two, which was the bilateral Innovate UK-Australia project. And this is around a novel project called HyZem, Hydrogen Zero Emissions Marine Vessel. And this is, again, looking at tugboats and light crew transfer vessels. Now, that project, again, involves RUX, but you've got Steamology as the lead UK partner, RUX as the lead Australian partner, and Duodrive are also partners. And Duodrive, again, are here in the room and can wax lyrical about the project for you later if you're interested. And then more broadly, RUX has been working with the NCC and the University of New South Wales around improving hydrogen production and distribution through the application of their MOFs. And we're looking at creative ways in which the circular economy can help by, for example, hydrogen production by pyrolysis, being using the carbon black byproduct in production of composite tanks for the containment of their MOF-lined hydrogen tanks. And their technology involves being able to operate those tanks at much lower temperatures than are conventionally used in the industry at the moment. We've just signed an MOU around green freight corridor between ourselves and East Midlands Freeport, which is the only inland freeport. That's primarily around rail decarbonisation, but we're keen on projects around maritime and road decarbonisation as well. Maritime Transport Group have a secondary 5-acre site in Felixstowe as part of the Freeport that they intend to convert into an EV freight charging station for their 40 leased HGVs that they secured through the ZEBI project. And then at the bottom is the announcement around the RUX MOU. So we're keen to partner up with others to develop MOUs where they are appropriate for technology that helps us to decarbonise in our patch. We market the area, so this is the Chief Operating Officer of Felixstowe talking about Bathside Bay to a high-end China trade mission in Manchester 2 weeks ago. And the other image is our chairman in front of a very nice photo of Felixstowe at dawn, taken by one of the pilots, talking at the World Energy Congress in Istanbul last October on offshore wind. And we also spoke at their hydrogen session. So that's the contact details. Around for the rest of the day on LinkedIn. Very happy to take any questions later. And if they're too technical, I'll soon find somebody else to answer them for you. But good to meet you all.
Thank you, Stephen.